Good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure to welcome you along to Thinking Financial, our podcast discussing financial issues, our thoughts and experiences. Joined today by Craig Murrin and Simon Putt. Gentlemen,
Hi.
how are we doing?
Really good.
All well, thanks.
So I know last week we were discussing what our role means. And I think the whole recurring theme of the podcast generally is what does a financial advisor mean to people, especially in 2020? So reflecting upon that, I thought it would be interesting to discuss today what do we believe our value is to our clients, and what value can a financial advisor offer every year, and especially in 2020 as well.
The value is certainly that support and guidance. I think certainly in helping whoever it is get to the goal they want. Now, whether that be retirement planning, education planning, getting your life insurance in place, or whatever it might be, but it's just having that expert advice, helping someone that maybe isn't understanding what they need to do. Now, not everybody needs a financial advisor, obviously, but those people that need a little bit of assistance, that's where we really come to shine, I think.
Yeah, the two things I want to bring to the table are the holistic view that we can bring to people's finances, and also continuity. So when I talk about the holistic view, it's all very well to think about a savings plan or an insurance policy, but what we do is put everything into context so that the people we work with, they can see how their finances all fit together, how they're all basically pulling together towards a single goal of achieving long-term protection and growth towards objectives. And by continuity, I mean that, when one puts together any particular policy, it's not a one-off exercise. You do the paperwork and then walk away from it, particularly when it comes to investments or pensions. This is an exercise that requires ongoing monitoring, tinkering perhaps, just making sure that everything is continuing in the right direction towards achieving objectives. So it's very much bringing a big picture view to people's finances, and then a progression over time towards achieving objectives.
So you mentioned then goal planning. How big a part of what we do you think is sort of setting those goals in place?
It's crucial. It's such an important part of putting together a financial plan. People know that they expect to retire one day, or that they know that they want their children to go to a good quality university. So, rather than just grabbing numbers out of the dark and hoping, okay, perhaps we'll get to our target in 15 or 30 years time, depending what the objective is, having the plan that fits the target, gives you the much better chance of getting there. And without setting a target, it's very difficult to put together a constructive plan. So the importance of the advisor then is to help identify what that target is, rather than just something nebulous like I want to send my boy to university. Identify what that target is, and then work together to see what the steps are. So it's very much a hand-in-hand process from that point of view.
I totally agree. Having a plan in place for any aspect of your life is a good and sensible idea. So at least kind of where you want to be and if you're on the right path. And it goes back to what we said, I think, in episode 2 or whatnot, having a budget in place. So that's just kind of like a plan for your retirement or for whatever it is you're saving for, just having that target in sight so you know how you're going to get there. And you may not stick to that path. Life isn't one straight journey, and things happen, things come up, things get in the way, but actually having an idea of where you want to be and how you're going to get there, however loose the idea is vital, I think.
And you mentioned the budget there, Craig. I think that's really important, because that comes back to my point about holism, that it's all very well identifying a target and then identifying what the steps are to get there. But it doesn't really mean anything unless you know that it actually fits with your financial picture, that you can afford it, that it's sustainable, that it's not going to compromise the rest of your financial activity or lifestyle. So forming that kind of target and plan really does involve having the broad picture of the whole financial story.
Mm-hmm.
That's true. And it's forming a plan, but it's also being adaptable. Isn't it? It's 5 years from now, it's 10 years from now, it's 15 years from now, being able to change that plan alongside the person and the end goals, and the goals themselves can change. I often think one of the biggest parts of what we do is quantifying goals. Is to say, okay, we have this great dream, we have a retirement you'd like to be able to achieve, or you have education costs. What are the raw numbers on that, and how much do we need to invest to get you there? I feel a lot of where our value comes is putting it onto a page, is making it seem real and putting that strategy in place. That's how I think I've always interpreted it.
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple of really good points there, Chris. And I think in terms of making something tangible is so important because, you know, we all know that we want to retire one day. We want to have a comfortable amount of money to be able to retire on. But what does that actually look like other than knowing that we need a large sum of money that we can live off comfortably? We can make it tangible. We can identify what a target lifestyle looks like. We can build in a model that uses inflation outlook and actually make this all tangible and recognizable. And just to pick up on another point that you said, you talked about how things can change, you know, how things can change during the life of having a plan and being the need to be adaptable. That's absolutely right. You know, if someone's in their 30s and looking to take a retirement plan until, you know, they retire at the age of 65, well, so much is going to happen in those intervening 30 years. This person might lose their job once or twice, or, you know, get a new job where they're earning a lot more money or less money, or make a big lifestyle change like having children or having a divorce. You know, all kinds of things can happen. So the need to be adaptable and having someone alongside you who can help you make those adaptations is incredibly important.
Having that flexibility is absolutely vital, so that if you do move, if something happens, you're not going to get penalized for having to stop something or having to maybe halt your payments or something like that. So that would be one thing I would look at for my own plan, is making sure it's got that flexibility that I'm not going to get hurt in the long run if something was to happen.
It's also a guide to help stay on course. It's also encouraging that steady discipline. It's you know, when you sort of sit down with someone, it helps kind of keep that structure in place, I always feel, as well. It can also be a steady hand to help guide the way as well. You know, when implementing that discipline and sticking to it means that the plan happens, means that you kind of reach the end goal with what you wanted in the first place.
Yeah, I think discipline is such an important word, and it's clearly a value that an advisor can bring, because, you know, we often have the best of intentions and we can start getting into some kind of savings activity, but it doesn't take an awful lot to derail us, to be distracted. And once you fall off the tracks, it can be very difficult to get back onto the tracks. What I often liken us to in this respect is it's like having a physical trainer. You know, any of us can go to the gym, use the equipment, and you know, have all good intentions about becoming hench or losing weight or whatever it is we want to do, but, you know, do we properly know how to use that equipment? And oh my God, you know, it's time to go out for lunch with my friends and have a drink or two. You know, suddenly you begin to lose the discipline. Whereas actually having that physical trainer there keeps you on your track, because you know you've got an appointment 3 times a week or whatever it is to go and hit it hard in the gym.
I was going to say the same thing. Yeah.
I certainly think as we become older as well, or you kind of go through those stages of life, it does become more complicated. There are so many different factors of getting it right, being that mortgages on one hand, being that life insurance on the other, being that making sure you get to retirement with enough funds to be able to live comfortably. What does drawdown mean? What does taking the money in an efficient way once you have stopped working? How does that look? It becomes increasingly more complicated as people go down the line. So I like to think that my value increases the longer relationship I have with the client. So
yeah, of course it will.
Every stage of life, there's something else to be offering.
That's an important point, Chris, because, you know, the way I often categorize it is that every single person, whoever they are, needs a financial plan, whether they're single or married, children, no children, whatever they are, they need a financial plan. And the reality is that whenever the point they took out that financial plan, it's going to change over time. Things will happen to them. Maybe they will have children, or there will be school needs, and eventually they will retire or want to buy another property. Things will happen that will mean they need to change and adapt that financial plan. So the need for a plan is always there. Where we need to be smart as advisors is help people stay one step ahead of the changes that are required.
Also, there's a lot of, not loopholes, but there's a lot of different aspects to all the products that are out on the market available for people. And if you understand one product, that's really, really good, but you might find that there's another product out there, or there's another facility out there that is much, much better or suited to you as an investor, that without that professional advisor, you may not even know about it. So it's great to get that financial advisor's help to point you in the right direction, so that you know that you've got the best for you as an individual, if that makes sense.
It makes a lot of sense.
Making an informed choice.
One of the things,
making an informed choice.
One of the things that we bring is to demystify the products, which, you know, we know inside out. We're used to. We deal with these every day. But for the vast majority of people, and I don't want to denigrate people's capabilities, but most people don't understand fully what an insurance policy is all about, particularly as some policies can be more complex than others. Don't fully understand what savings and investments exercise look like. The reality is these can all be quite straightforward, but it takes someone to properly explain, so that these then very comfortably become part of people's lives. And you're right, Craig, in terms of helping people make the right decisions when there's lots of competing or slightly alternative solutions that are out there. We can obviously help that process. And then the other thing is just guiding through the whole establishment process. We all well know that, you know, setting up an insurance policy or a savings plan can be quite a cumbersome bureaucratic process. And so, you know, our job is to cut through all the paperwork, all the requirements, and get these things in place nice and easily for our clients. And
you've got to remember that financial advisors are working for the client. We're advisors. We're here to advise you. And this is what I say to my clients, is that I will show you what you can and can't do. And I will say, I think this is the best option for you. It's up to you as a client, whether you take that advice or what you do with it. We literally are here to advise you, and then you make your own informed decision, as Chris just said. And I think that's what you've got to look for when you are looking for an advisor, is look for the ones that are looking out for you, looking for your best interest and helping you get to where you need to be.
Yeah, especially in this information age. It's, you know, there's so much information widely available in Google and so many reviews. And some of it can be a little bit misleading. Some of it can be a jumble of information and certainly not relevant for the individual. Something else I would often I try and always understand the client first before giving advice. You can't get that from a website. I try and understand goals. I try to set goals.
And why they're putting them in place.
I love the phrase demystify. That's one of my favorite phrases kind of in the industry, because I love the fact we do that and make the complicated actually simple, without oversimplifying what can be a difficult process.
Yeah. And there's another thing, I kind of relate my own experience here, because I was a client for 10 years of the advisory business. I used to work in a different industry within the financial services business. I had financial advisors for about 10 years, and some of them were very, very good. Some of them were not so good, shall we say. But what I took from that when I then came to work in this line of business is that the things I valued most as a client were some of the things we've touched on, above all demystifying these pieces of business, but also communication and transparency. And, you know, I had advisors who were very good at telling me what was going on, were regularly keeping up to date with me, you know, quarterly reviews and so forth. And I had advisors who had no interest in doing any of that. And I found myself having to do a lot of chasing. Yeah. So having come into this line of work, you know, I have a very simple philosophy, which is always to be the kind of advisor for clients that I would have wanted for myself. And I always put communication and transparency as very strong virtues towards achieving that.
Communication.
I love that.
Sure.
I love that.
I think communication is the key to any relationship, whether that's with your financial advisor or your husband and wife or your kids or anything. I think communication is vital. And the most of the complaints that I receive when I'm speaking with, you know, clients looking for advisors is the fact that they haven't heard from their existing advisor for however many weeks, months, or what it might be. So yeah, I think you've really nailed that one, Simon. I think that's key.
I think one of the challenges though is that it's all very well saying these things, particularly, you know, if we're thinking about people who might be thinking about having an advisor. I guess that's one of those sort of qualities or strengths that people will only find out once they've got a relationship underway. It's something where people have to take a little bit of a plunge and hope that this is the kind of guy that I can trust and have communication with. But I think even at the outset, it is possible for people to have access to information that helps them decide what is a good advisor, things that they should look out for in terms of picking the right kind of advisor. Do you share that view?
Question. What do you think makes a good advisor?
Much of what we've discussed in terms of communication, transparency, all build into the huge concept of trust. That's the thing.
Right.
This is a relationship.
I wholly agree.
Yeah, that could be lasting for years and years and years. I mean, I've got clients that I've had for many years, and they've even followed me from one company to another, and they base it on exactly the same thing every time. It's trust, it's friendship. I know you, I know, and I trust. I like the way you do things,
and consistency on how you do it. Don't just do it once at the beginning. Don't blow it out from the first time you meet the client and do an amazing job at the beginning, then don't follow it throughout your relationship. Like you said, Simon, the reason clients have moved with you is because of that consistent good service, that consistent communication throughout the relationship. And as long as you're doing that, you will find that clients will follow you and your book will grow.
Yeah, it's quite humbling, I must say. When people do follow like that, I never take it for granted. I'm always very flattered by it. But at the same time, I have to be objective. They do it for a reason. I'm doing something right, and people follow without any question or debate. And so, it's the strongest indicator of all about doing things the right way.
And going back to what we were just talking about a couple of moments ago, for clients not knowing from the beginning if their advisor is going to be good or going to be bad, ask for references. If you're speaking with a financial advisor right now, just ask them to speak, because as advisors here in the US especially, we're not able to have testimonials and things like that on our social media and on our website because the SEC just doesn't allow it. So, but clients can ask to speak to existing clients to get references and find out how your service is. So if you're out there right now looking for a financial advisor and speaking to someone, just ask them, hey, do you mind if I speak to 2 or 3 of your clients? They won't pick and choose the best ones just to give you a good one. They have to give you a broad view of their client base. And you can reach out, and that I think would be a good starting point to checking on your advisor to see how their service has been for other people. Yeah.
And there is concrete information as well that's easily accessible for people in terms of weighing up whether this is an advisor who is the kind of person who could give good advice. You can easily look on LinkedIn or the SEC website in terms of seeing what someone's career history is and seeing what qualifications they have. These are hugely important signposts in terms of assessing the credibility of a potential advisor.
There is all that. There is also gut feeling. I don't know, sometimes you can tell quite early on if you're going to click and get on with the person.
Yeah.
And that is important, because to an extent, a client might make themselves vulnerable around us. They have to reveal what's going well and what's not. And we have to come from a place of trust, and sort of assess it almost pragmatically about how we put into place what needs to be done.
I agree. Chemistry is hugely important.
Chemistry.
Yeah. You've got to get on, because potentially you could be with your financial advisor for the rest of your life. Ultimately, if you're setting up your retirement plans and they're doing a good job, there's no reason why you would move away from that advisor unless you move to a different jurisdiction and all of that. But theoretically, you could be with that advisor for the next 20, 30, 40, 50 years. So you've got to make sure you get on. Otherwise, that monthly or quarterly meeting is not going to be nice, and you're going to dread it. So then you'll stop possibly concentrating on your finances. So
you have to be able to trust them. You have to be able to feel vulnerable with the person as well. Obviously, qualifications, benchmark qualifications.
Yeah, I mean, that goes without...
that goes without saying, as does working for an established licensed company as well. That does all go without saying, really. But beyond that, that gut feeling of wanting to be able to be vulnerable with somebody, I think is crucial as well.
So what would you say... why should people, in what state of life do you think people should be looking for a financial advisor? I know, Simon, you said that everybody should have one, but what key people or key stages in life do you think people should be looking for financial advisors?
So you're never making an assumption.
To be clear, what I suggested was that everyone should have a financial plan.
Yes, sorry, yes, you did.
And then it's a very strong recommendation that, not actually, to be honest with you, if we're being completely objective, not everyone does need an advisor. There are plenty of people out there who are sophisticated and amazingly organized and could possibly look after themselves. But I'm talking about a real minority. of people there. The majority of people, I would certainly recommend having an advisor, because of the reasons we've given, for the holistic view and for the continuity and making life straightforward on all these matters. If that is the case, then, and having established that everyone should have a financial plan, I'd get an advisor on board as soon as possible. There's no time like the present to map out your future and assess what you could be doing now to make your future achievable.
And also, I think any advisor worth their salt, would tell you whether or not you were in need of a financial advisor. Once they go through the conversation, I've said it many times to my clients, or not my clients now, but looked through their plans, and it's just, from a cost perspective, there's nothing that I could do that would benefit them and put them in a better financial position. And I will happily tell clients, no, what you have in place, specifically, maybe pension transfer or something, what you have in place is perfect. Leave it where it is. You don't need my help. You're good, kind of thing. And I'm happy to tell clients that.
I would never make the assumption to presume someone shouldn't have financial planning at any point. But there are certainly stages of life where it becomes more important. So if you've got a young family, now you have dependents, you have something that needs protecting, or you're kind of entering a point where you'd like to start putting money aside for education, for maybe trust planning, for retirement. So every stage has its crucial elements, but perhaps I'd say certainly moving into that young family stage, everyone should assess their options.
I agree. If you are starting a new family, or having that conversation, should we start trying or whatnot, I think that's the great time to go out and seek advice and have a conversation with a financial professional about everything, because that's, they can help with your estate planning, they can put things in place for education planning. A financial advisor can really be that that foundational conversation that can then connect you to the other professions that you might need to speak to at the same time. I would agree. Starting a family is one of the vital times to speak to a professional.
Yeah, and I have to, I agree with that, and add that, it's very daunting having children. Not just the fact that you suddenly got a little life that's completely dependent on you, but, it's also waking up to the financial ramifications. All of a sudden, that you're going to be spending a way lot more money than you were before you had children. Not just certainly for a good 20 years or so. It's daunting. It's daunting. Yeah. And so having someone who can actually make it look a lot less daunting, look, this is manageable. This is what we need to do. This is what we need to be aware of for your future. This is how we can build that in so it's manageable for you. Just, it eases a lot of the pressure and the apparent burden to get through that 20-year period.
Yeah, because it can be very overwhelming. I can imagine. I don't have kids, but the financial burden of it all, for sure, can worry, and things get out of control. So I would totally agree with you on that.
Quick question for the both of you and myself. What encouraged you to become advisors?
Originally for me, it was from an insurance role. It was a kind of the next logical step. I love protecting families. I love making sure that people are prepared, and I just like helping people. So for me, it was a real easy sort of slide from insurance and professional indemnity and that kind of area over in the UK that then made me get excited about looking at seeing how I can help families more than just an insurance perspective.
I had a slightly different passage into the advisory world. Previously, I was involved in investment banking, working specifically in debt capital markets. I was there for about 20 years. And certainly for the last 5 years of those 20 years, I was getting increasingly jaded with it and wanting to find a way out. Very demanding, pressurized way of life, very difficult to get the right work-life balance. I mean, not that I didn't take the responsibility seriously, but I was getting pretty tired of it. And what I asked myself was, what did I think I was good at, and what did I enjoy? And the two things that I was doing that I did enjoy was I was always a client-facing person. I was dealing with people representing borrowers of debt capital market instruments. And the second part was the whole solution finding aspect, doing the full SWOT analysis, seeing what the constraints were, what the strengths were, and then devising a plan that came out of that. And so it wasn't really a big leap of faith to exit investment banking and going to the advisory world. So now that, I still deal with people on a one-on-one basis, individuals, I've always loved that relationship side of my job, and still solution finding and coming up with solutions. And one of the things that I always tell myself now is that, back in the day when I was in the debt capital markets world, without blowing my own trumpet, I was involved in big transactions. We're talking about, multi-billion-dollar transactions for governments and major corporates, which were very stressful and hard work to be involved in.
Yeah.
Now I deal with individuals. The numbers are obviously a lot smaller, but in some ways I find this a lot more bringing responsibility and seriousness to what I do, because
let me put this to you, Simon. So I don't mean to interrupt, but I think that could be a good place just to put something to you. So you, from what I understand, you've had quite the life, haven't you? You've sort of traveled the world, you've lived in all these different countries. It's probably fair to say you've had to adapt quite a lot to sort of new places, new relationships, new stages of life significantly. I feel, actually, does that help your empathy when dealing with clients adapting to new stages of life? Because you've experienced so much. Does that help with the advice you would give other people?
To a large extent, yes. And also chuck into the mix that I've had 2 children who are now at university. So, there's that common ground that I have with a lot of people. Yeah. I've changed geography, I've changed jobs, and, it's had an impact, positive or less positive, on my financial circumstances at one point or another. And I've had to adapt what I've been doing all along. So it has helped me how I interrelate with people that I meet for the first time and then build relationships. And the fact that I've been through the journey with children also is huge common ground for working with people.
Yeah.
I just want to finish that point about comparing what I do now with what I was doing then. Like I say, in those days, if I was working on a big transaction, it was always with a company financial officer or a head of treasury, and you always got the sense that as much as this was an important transaction, that guy would leave his job one day, walk away, and it wasn't really his problem at the end of the day if that debt would be repaid or not. Whereas now, if I'm working with someone on their kids' university funding or their retirement plan, well, they're not walking away from that. That's got real importance for the rest of their lives. And as much as the numbers might be smaller now for me, in some ways they're much more important. And
more significant in some respects, personally significant.
Yeah, and I thrive on the kind of responsibility that brings to really get it right for people.
Yeah.
And Craig, maybe fair comment back to you as well. You've had to adapt to move into the Middle East, and obviously you've moved to America after that, and probably other things I don't know. Do you feel for you as well that's maybe helped you empathize with people moving around different stages of life?
Certainly when dealing with, say, Brits living over here in the US, because there are a lot of international clients that have lived in not just the UK, they may have lived in other countries, now they're living over here. So I certainly can relate to their experiences. And it certainly has rounded me as a person, maybe. I think more so than anything, it's just made me certainly more open to different cultures, different people, different ways of life. And I think that helps me understand clients much better. I don't look at them as one-dimensional anymore. It's more of a, okay, I see you, and then I can offer that holistic plan because I understand so much more from living overseas and living in lots of different jurisdictions. So yeah, it's helped. I'm
driving a little bit at empathy being such a crucial part of the job as well, is really sort of understanding what's behind the goals, what's behind the dreams, desires, and fears a little bit as well.
Yeah, completely. And that goes when you're having a conversation, that first conversation that you have with someone, you understand, or you try to understand them as an individual or as a family or whatever it is. Your first point of contact is really to get deep down and find out what makes that client or the individual tick. And this is maybe getting off topic, I don't know, but I think that when you try to understand someone more, then you can understand what reasons why they want these goals, the reasons why they're putting these things in place. Not just, I want to have this much in retirement. Why are you wanting that much? What are you going to do with your retirement? What does your retirement look like? Are you going to travel, play golf? And we really need to understand clients. And as a client looking for a financial advisor, you want to have someone that you feel has got your best interests out and does look out
Yeah,
for you.
I often feel the first meeting is an opportunity to really understand the person first. I think if we start from that top and then work our way down, that's often the best way, I believe, to do our jobs.
Yeah, I think you learn a lot more about people from just having a conversation. You actually then get a sense of some of the sort of non-financial aspects that are an important part of financial planning. What do people's ethics? What do they feel strongly about? What are their philosophies about life, or how do they think about their children? And there's a lot there which is really important for us to take on board when we're devising the right solutions for people that we meet. So, Chris, Craig and I have given quite expansive answers there about how we came into the advisory business. You've also worked in far-flung places, and you now find yourself coming to the United States. How's your journey been in the advisory world, and what was it that inspired you? Not just to come in, but inspiring you on a daily basis.
I love that question because there's no straightforward answer. And I'm aware that we're on a podcast, so I don't want to spend 10 hours telling you about my entire life. But you do learn a lot. I lived in Japan many years ago. You do learn a lot about what drives people. You meet so many people from all over the world. I love that about the job. Again, in the Middle East, understanding, being able to get on with people, understanding people, finding ways to add value to people. So, and after living in Japan, where I was lucky enough to meet people from all over the world, I went to the Middle East, and it was just such a natural fit into the sort of financial advisory world. I love meeting with people. I'm the same as you. I love the face-to-face side of the job. I think we all do. And I made a very clear effort very early on in my career to add as much knowledge as I could, to add as much value as I could. And I had a fundamental belief back in my mid-20s that the more value I could add, the more successful the business and my clients would be. And I think by and large, that's the ethos that's carried me here. It's just such a great job. It's such a great job. You get to meet new people, you get to help them, you get to add knowledge, you get to work with them down the years, you get to grow trust. It's brilliant, and I really enjoy it.
Every client is different, and I like that as well. The fact
no day is the same because every client's different.
Every day is different, and that for me is good, because I'm the type of person I need to have that. I can't do a monotonous sort of 9 to 5 in the office doing the same thing day in, day out. I need to have that, not excitement, but hopefully you know what I'm trying to say. That
stimulation. I'd say it's very stimulating meeting new people and existing clients and sort of reassessing goals, working with them. It's a great feeling.
No, and I think there's an important guideline for the financial advisor here, just to sort of bring us back onto topic a little bit more, in that, recognizing that everyone is different, everyone has got their own story to tell, is then for us, when we meet people, to have almost zero preconceptions as to what we're going to be talking about. Zero agenda, zero preconceptions. Well, zero agenda other than having a sensible meeting and forming some views. But in terms of going in with ideas of products and solutions, no, I always put that on the back of my mind when starting out. Let's just get to know these people, find out what they have to say, find out what their priorities and their objectives are. And then the solutions kind of find themselves, and it becomes a very dual person. The people I meet, they identify the solutions almost exactly the same time as I do, that, this is what we need to be thinking of.
Well said. Thank you, Simon. I certainly think the point of that really, and maybe the whole conversation, is when you speak to a financial advisor, look for someone who's looking to understand you and what your goals are. Like, you're not just going onto Google and typing in who you are, your bank balance, and getting a response. It really has to be about what your personal goals are. So my advice to someone would be, look for someone who's obviously qualified, works for a reputable company, but looks to understand you. And that would be my final say on the matter.
Yeah, I agree with that. Look for what's best for you, and look for someone that you get on with, and someone that's got your best interests would be key.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you, everybody. It's been a pleasure. Remember, you can find us on YouTube, LinkedIn, Instagram, and your podcast provider as well. To anyone else who might have some more questions, or indeed if anybody would like us to discuss any topics in the near future, please let us know. We love engaging with the community around us. That's the entire point. And we're always here if you need us.